in. Let's see here.
I'll go ahead and mute for a while.
Okay. Okay, we've got 5 so far. I'm going to go ahead and okay, for everybody that's listening right now, I'm just waiting on a few more people before we get started with the announcements. Give everybody a chance to log in. Okay, I think I'm just going to get started, at least with the announcements. We've got 6 people here so far, so we'll just hopefully we'll have more people come in as it goes. This is not our normal meeting day. Normally we meet on the first Thursday of every month, so maybe it threw people off. But we will just go on with this. I want to thank everybody that is attending and who will be watching our recorded version of this. I do have some announcements. So next month, our meeting will be on October 1st, and we'll be talking about hub sites, getting started with hub sites, how to build your internet with Susan Hanley. Then in November, our meeting will be on November 12th, which is not the first Thursday, but we just had to schedule it on the 12th, and we'll be talking about SharePoint Online customization toolset with Alex. And Alex, in fact, all of these speakers so far this year also spoke at our conference here a couple months ago. So if you saw some of the sessions in the Omaha 365 conference, you'll also see some of the same speakers coming up in our user group, just different topics. And then in December, we'll have Emily speaking on embedding user experience in your out-of-the-box solutions. So that wraps up our 2020 meetings, and then beginning in 2021, we need speakers. And so if you would like to speak or know somebody that would like to speak, or you want to just volunteer somebody to speak, go to that URL and fill out the form, and I'll contact and get you all lined up for a month. So without anything else to say, I'm going to turn this over to Erica, and the topic that I'm really interested in, Project Cortex. So Erica, it is all yours. I'm going to send, let's see here. Now if I can figure out how to send the video over.
I just started sharing the screen, so hopefully you're able to see it.
Okay, I think we got you.
Okay, excellent. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. As mentioned, my name is Erica Toelle, and I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services based out of Seattle. You can always check me out at my blog, which is howtouseoffice365.com. So today we're going to be talking about Project Cortex, which is a new solution being released by Microsoft. Hopefully, I'm actually guaranteed we're probably going to hear a lot more about Project Cortex at Ignite this year, which is happening September 22nd to the 24th. It's a free online conference, so if you're interested in learning more, definitely sign up for Ignite. I think we can, my guess, and this is just a guess, is they're probably going to announce the information about Project Cortex licensing at Ignite. So that's not something you're going to see in the presentation today because we don't know what the licensing is for it. We do know it's going to be a premium solution, so it's not going to be an Office 365 E3. But with that, today's presentation is going to focus more on the functionality of Project Cortex, what it is, why you would use it. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, let me move this. So as you probably know, Microsoft 365 is designed to be the world's productivity cloud. But what does that really mean? So when you think about Microsoft 365, think about 4 different solution areas. So first, we have our collaboration technology, which I'm sure all of us on this call are familiar with, right? Because it's things like SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. Then we have our workflow solutions with Power Apps, Power Automate, and Flow. We have, of course, a foundation of security and compliance features available in the Microsoft 365 suite. And then lastly is our newest pillar, which is the knowledge solutions. Now, this is where Project Cortex lives, along with things like the new version of Yammer and the new Microsoft Search. So then diving into that knowledge pillar a bit more, when we say knowledge management, here are the specific solutions that we're trying to help. So first, search has always been a problem in enterprise environments, right? You have disparate systems. We're not just working in Microsoft 365, and people just want to find the information and get their job done. Along with that, we have our disconnected silos of information. You might have other cloud applications like Box or Dropbox or Google Suite. And now we're even getting point solutions for things like Smartsheet or these spreadsheet programs. But it's really hard to understand where information might live. And then, again, this has always been a problem, but the tacit knowledge of individuals is untapped. So tacit knowledge is the knowledge and expertise that's in someone's head based on their experience. So, for example, if you were an engineering firm, it would be the person who knows how to build, who's been through a bunch of road building projects, and they know all of the pitfalls and things to look out for. So how can you kind of capture that knowledge and expertise of those individuals? Then we need to, of course, protect our intellectual property. Especially now with the way the world is, everybody is working online from home. So how do we protect the intellectual property given the complexities of that environment? And then finally, people come and go from your organization all the time. So how do you manage the risk from the knowledge drain of people leaving the organization? So these are the challenges that we want to try to solve with Project Cortex. So Project Cortex is really designed around 4 pillars. So first, the experiences. So this is using insights from across Office 365, signals captured in what's called the Microsoft Graph. So Microsoft knows a lot of things about how you work when you use Microsoft 365. They know that you scheduled a meeting. They know who you invited and who ended up attending. They can tell what documents that you presented in the meeting, and they can tell what information people accessed after the meeting. That's just one example of all the signals around a meeting that are sent to the Microsoft Graph. So by harnessing those signals and harvesting the information, we're able to build better experiences for people. And then, of course, we want to be able to proactively surface content and other information they might need, which builds up to the knowledge experiences. So we'll be able to harvest information from these documents and prompt people to provide their knowledge and expertise. And then, of course, we can get insights about people's behavior as well. So this is kind of the meta big picture. And then for the rest of the presentation, let's talk about how we are going to tactically do this. So ROI, it's always great to throw out statistics to try to justify the problem. So typically, if you are a company with $1 billion of annual revenue, you could save $8.57 million just by reducing the time of new hires by 1 week. So let's say that normally it would take 4 weeks to ramp them up till they're 100% productive at their new job. If you could reduce that to 3 weeks, you'd save $8.57 million. So, we can really see here how knowledge sharing can be valuable to a company. So as a case example, one of the earliest testers of Project Cortex is a company called Mott MacDonald based out of the UK, or headquartered in the UK. They operate in lots of countries. So they're an engineering and consulting firm, and they were able to harness Project Cortex to actually achieve the numbers that we saw in the previous slide. So this isn't just speculation, it's something that's been done through a proof of concept. All right. So Project Cortex. So there's really kind of 3 areas of Project Cortex that we'll talk about today. So first, how do we connect people to the knowledge that they need to do their jobs? Second, how can we process content to extract out the information that we need in order to enable our business processes and other types of document-centric processes? And then finally, of course, underlying everything in Microsoft 365 is the security and compliance features to protect your knowledge and intellectual property. So first, we're going to talk about the knowledge network in Microsoft 365. So this is specifically connecting topics and expertise to people. So first, Project Cortex is able to automatically identify topics that might be of interest to people. This is using artificial intelligence to find patterns that indicate a topic. Then once it finds that pattern, it builds out some assets to support knowledge sharing around that particular topic, and those are what we'll go through today. And then now that we have these pages and information centers or knowledge centers about our topics, it's easier to find the knowledge and expertise you need. So as an example, we spend a lot of our time in Teams these days, right? So let's say that we're having a chat with somebody and they mention a project. So maybe the Mark 8 project or the Project Core. And I have some questions about what it is, why I should care. So what Project Cortex has done is it's automatically identified Mark 8 and Project Core as topics that you can learn more about, and it's underlined them. And then if I hover over one of those items, it's going to bring up a topic card. So the topic card is a summary of information. It's automatically generated by the AI, but you can also curate this and edit it if you're the topic expert to have it show what you would like. So for example, it gives you a short description of the project. It tells you where it got that description, so you could click on the link to learn more. And it shows you people and resources around that topic. And then if I click on the name, it's going to bring us to our Knowledge Center, where we have a topic page that tells us more about this project or this topic. So, again, it has a bigger description. It shows us the people involved with the project and why they were shown as related people. And then we can see resources, which are documents that the AI has decided are related to this project. Now, this is just a SharePoint page. You can edit it like any other SharePoint page. So if you want to change the people, you want to change the overview, you want to change the resources, no problem. Nothing is stopping you as long as you have the right permissions. So you can have curated resources as well as other kind of discovered resources. You can see in the source column, it tells you, this topic was mentioned 9 times, and that's why it's listed as a discovered resource. And then at the bottom of the page, we have our topic graph. So what this has done is it's built a visual representation of the topic and then any related topics and how they're related. So you can see we have both curated topics and suggested topics. Now, of course, there's settings on whether or not you want to show suggested topics to your end users, or whether you'd want to, curate and approve any topics before that they're shown. You can see whether something has been a curated connection. So curated means a human did it, and then suggestion means the AI did it. And you can see things like how weighted or bolded the line is how strong the relationship is. But just think if you were a new employee starting at the company, you're hired as a resource on the construction operations reliability project. Think about how this would help you ramp up faster on your project. You can see how things relate to what you're doing. You can see who and how they are involved with the project. And it just really reduces that time for onboarding. So then, if I click in on one of the projects, say the Mark 8 project, you'll see a very similar topic page about that. Now in the Knowledge Center, if I click on the My Topics navigation item, this is going to bring me to a page that's curated just for me based on the projects I'm involved with and interests that I've shown by using Microsoft 365. So here I can see trending knowledge topics among my colleagues. So these are the people designated in Active Directory as my colleagues, as well as people that the graph can tell that I've been working with on projects, even if we don't have the same manager. So I can see, the suggested topics. Some are projects, some are events, organizations. I can see a summary, and I can see why it was suggested to me. So then I want to highlight that this experience of these knowledge topics isn't just in Teams. You can use it in Outlook for the web as well. And then if I do hover over a person's name, if I don't know how often you use this, but I use it all the time where I want to figure out who is this person in the meeting. These topics are also going to be integrated into the personal profile card as well. So here I can see, Nestor is involved in these 2 projects, and I could click show more if I wanted to see the full list. And then, even in Word on the web, you can, if you have a word, you're not sure what it is, you can do that smart lookup, and it's going to show you the same card of information. So the same experience across all these different apps. So then another really, really cool feature is this Teams bot, the knowledge bot. So how often are you chatting in Teams and someone knows you're involved with the project and they ask you a quick question? And it's a good question that probably more people are going to want to ask. So what you can do is tag the knowledge bot and tell it to add the question and answer as a part of the project. So on that topic page, there was a Q&A section that you could add this to. And then the knowledge bot will be able to do that. And then lastly, topic highlighting is also available in SharePoint Online pages throughout your intranet. And it's that same experience where it'll highlight the key topics and show the card as well. So it's not like, back in the 90s and 2000s, right? We'd all try to build these knowledge management solutions. But the problem was you always had to remember to go there and use it. So instead, we're taking the approach with Project Cortex to integrate that knowledge throughout the applications that you're already using every day. Okay, so now let's look a little bit more at that Knowledge Center. So in the Knowledge Center, if I would want to, this is just showing that it's the same people card. Okay. So the Knowledge Center is also going to suggest topics to people. So for example, if it sees that you've been attending meetings and performing activities around a certain topic, it will suggest that you add it to your profile. And that's what this looks like. So that's really how the knowledge experience is integrated throughout Project Cortex and how the topic cards work. So then we're moving on to our second pillar, which was the content processing pillar. So content processing is designed to do 2 things. So first, we're finally getting some auto classification of content in SharePoint. So using AI to tag documents appropriately for both structured and unstructured content. And then we're going to streamline content processes by using Power Automate to trigger workflows based on the information that's extracted from the documents. So what does that mean? Well, let me show you. So if you think about the different types of artificial intelligence applications that we could use in something like SharePoint and Teams, this is kind of the progression. So first, of course, is manual tagging. We've been doing that for 20 years now, and it doesn't work great. There has to be a better way, right? So then for a while now, with Azure and some of the Power Apps tools, we've been able to do smart object detection. So if you want to, look at a photo and have it recognize it as a dog, you could do that. And then there's also been some technology used in things like Office Lens and OneDrive that allow you to scan files and receipts and business cards. And like, for example, I use a business card one. I scan the business card with my Office Lens, and then it extracts the information and puts it into a OneNote document. So we've been able to do that for a while. So what's new is this forms processing and the file classification and entity extraction. So for forms processing, if you have a structured, predictable, repeatable form, like maybe a purchase order, it's what we are able to do is pick the pieces of metadata that are useful, like say the amount of the purchase order, the address where we need to send the bill, and we can extract that information and put it into a SharePoint document library into a column. Then, of course, once it's in a document library column, we can trigger workflows. We can use that information in other ways. And then for file classification and entity extraction, this is something that requires more training by a human, where a human will sit in front of the computer and train the model by saying, yes, this is an example of a document. No, it isn't. Yes, no, until the algorithm can correctly identify that document. So let's look at how these work. So this is the content center, which will be available in Project Cortex. So right from the start, we can see things like some dashboard widgets. But what we're going to do is use that upload functionality. So here we have a document library in the upload area of the content center. And I have some documents I'm going to process. So just like a regular document library, you're going to upload them. But what we've seen here is that when we did the upload, it extracted the title like it usually does, but it also extracted some notes and the file type. Now let's look at an example with purchase orders, which is a bit more impressive. So here we want to build a form extraction AI model to process these purchase orders. So we clicked create a model, and it's bringing us to the form processing interface. So we upload an example of one of our purchase orders, and automatically the tool has put a dotted purple box around the things that might be metadata. So what you need to do is you can click on one of them and it gives you information as well as a % confidence that it is something you care about. And when you select it, it'll add it to the selected fields on the right side of the screen, and those are going to become your metadata columns. So here we're going to add vendor, date, as well as subtotal, tax, handling, etc. So these are all things that we care about that we might want to use in a workflow later. So now that I've built my model, and it really is that simple, we can go ahead and upload our purchase orders to this library, and this could be any library, and it's going to process those files on upload, and there you can see it pulled out that metadata automatically from the PDF files. So no manual entry for your end users, and now we can use this information in other ways. So here we can see the vendor information, the shipping information, and the subtotal, and the purchase order number. Of course, that metadata is completely editable, just like any SharePoint document library. So if there is a mistake, you could fix it. So the next thing we're going to look at is the content center. So here is how we're going to build a classifier model. This is the one that requires training by a human. It's more complex because we don't need the documents to be as structured as the forms processing tool. So the forms processing, the fields have to be pretty much in the same place all the time. Like you can't add a bunch of text in there and move it around. Whereas there's more flexibility with this type of a classifier model. So what you would do is you would upload your training documents to this model, and you're going to go through a training process. Excuse me. So it's going to ask you if it's going to try to find the metadata that you care about embedded in this document. So you can see the green is something the model predicted. And then it's going to ask you to verify that that is, in fact, the correct metadata property that should go in that metadata field. And then as you go through, the accuracy, which is shown in the upper right corner, is going to get closer and closer to 100. And then once it's a high enough accuracy, you can start using it. So for example, I can edit the explanation. So for example, the word agreement that goes into our phrase list. So you can have, say, different type words that mean the same thing, like contract or agreement. If maybe your departments use a bit different language. But then you're able to have, what we see here is the classifier model, which is called contracts, and then the entity extractor, which is helping us understand the different types of entities that could be in a contract. And then once you're done, you can add the library location of where people are storing the contracts. And then once you upload them, here's an example of a contract we're going to upload. Then it will populate that data and extract out the metadata. So very similar to the forms processing, but this is with those less structured documents. Like these contracts might be using the same template, but the language that you put in the template is going to be different every time. So that's why this is a bit magic. Then of course, it's just a SharePoint document library, so you can work with the metadata as normal. So that is how the entity extraction works for the purchase orders and for unstructured content. And then just a short section on compliance. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with compliance, but there's a wide suite of tools available. So everything from retention to protecting sensitive information and applying those sensitivity labels that protect the data from being emailed or opened by external parties or whatever you want to do to protect it. And this works hand in hand with Project Cortex, because how do you know what retention label to apply to a document? Well, it's a whole lot easier if you have metadata pulled out and extracted from the document that you can use to automatically apply that label. So what the window here is showing is, if we have the project contract that we showed in the previous step, We could automatically assign a content type, right? Because it's just being put into a library, and we can have the default content type be contract, or in this case, funding. And then you can automatically apply the right retention policy, or to some extent sensitivity labels based on these types of properties. So anything you can do to bring more structure to your data is just going to make it easier from a security and compliance perspective. So I think the point of this pillar is, it's using all of the features that you would expect to find on any SharePoint document or any type of data in Office 365, and everything works as expected. So for example, our retention labels can manage the content lifecycle of this information. So you're keeping it for as long as you need per regulations or organizational policies, and then you can delete it when you don't need it anymore, so it's not a liability. The sensitivity labels can help set things like data loss prevention policies, encryption, sharing settings, whether it can be shared inside or outside the organization, and conditional access. The users can apply the labels, or if you have the correct licensing, they can be automatically applied. And then things like the analytics provide this, just, people want to see how it's being used in dashboards. So just as a summary, Project Cortex has the 3 pillars that will be available at launch. So first, connecting people to the knowledge. Second, processing the content to extract metadata from it. And then third, it follows all the rules with security and compliance, and the fruits of your labor from these first 2 steps will just help enhance or accelerate the security and compliance protections. So I went through that a little faster in this than I did when I practiced. We will have plenty of time for questions at the end. I do have 2 more slides. For those that are interested in what the architecture of Project Cortex is, it's shown in this diagram. So first of all, as we showed in the beginning, it works across all Office 365 applications. It is comprised of topic cards, topic pages, the Knowledge Center, and then the Content Center, which is where we did the metadata extraction. It's building on the Microsoft Graph and the AI capabilities that are available in Azure. So they didn't build any new AI product for Project Cortex. What they're doing is using things like Azure Lewis, and then the Power Automates module, and just integrating it more deeply with Microsoft 365. Later on, we'll be able to connect more external data sources through these search connectors that they've announced to bring external content into this environment. But for right now, we have Microsoft 365 and those capture engines. So then, of course, the roadmap. So this is the last one that they've announced publicly. It is a little out of date now because, of course, they're saving all their cool announcements for Ignite when we'll get the updated roadmap. But right now, we have, they are rolling out Microsoft Search in SharePoint and OneDrive. There are some public previews of these search content connectors available. You are able to do some minimal extensibility with search. It's not quite on par yet with what we had on premises to customize search, but they're getting there. We're going in the right direction finally. The other thing is they have modernized managed metadata and the content type hub finally. If you were already using managed metadata, it'll seamlessly transition to the new refreshed user interface. And you can actually see that probably in your Office 365 environment today. I have it in all my tenants. But metadata is not going away. Content types are not going away. In fact, they're getting more investment through these Project Cortex efforts. Those two pieces are still going to be available in the E3 license. It's just we're just fortunately benefiting from this refresh. So then in early 2020, which has already happened, it's not early 2020 anymore. It's going to be Ignite or after Ignite. So we do have the improved taxonomy management already rolling out. It was rolling out in July and August. Manage metadata, content types. So one of the first things they'll release with Project Cortex is the topic cards and pages that we saw in this demo. And then the content understanding or extracting the metadata. So those are the things that'll be available at launch. And then in Project Cortex V2, which actually I'm sure they're probably already working on, they'll be able to further integrate Microsoft 365, provide more control and mapping around your content topics and metadata types. There'll be more business process automation in the Content Center, more third-party extensibility and APIs, and then smart document creation and generation. So what this means is, now that we are learning more about the knowledge in our organization, the AI will hopefully be able to pull out, say, the description of the project and have that be something that you could easily put into other documents. So instead of information living only in one document, it'll now be more modules that you can put together to create and generate documents automatically. This might be too much of a tangent, but that's kind of what they're doing with Microsoft Lists, right? So lists used to only live in SharePoint, and the reason they did Microsoft Lists is because, I don't know if you've seen the demo, but you'll be able to paste a list into a Teams chat, and people can edit that list from the Teams chat, and it'll update everywhere that list is used in Microsoft 365. So they haven't specifically announced this, but I think it wouldn't be a stretch to assume they're going to start taking that same strategy with other types of content in Microsoft 365. The idea that you edit it once and it updates everywhere. So that's what I see when it says smart document creation and generation. That's what I think that is. So then, of course, more advanced search and extensibility. So they have said they want to get Microsoft Search extensibility to at least the bar that we had in on-premise SharePoint. So with that, I'm getting near the end of the presentation. They said general availability in H1 2020. That's why I assume it's going to be at Ignite, but they haven't, said that for sure, but one can assume. And if you want to learn more information, they actually have some great resources available in their Project Cortex info page, including some of these click-through demos that you can do, not in a live environment, but in a, I don't know what you call it, where a dynamic page you can interact with. So with that, are there any questions in the chat that I could address?
Yeah, there was one, and I think I answered it already, but I just want to verify. The question was, is the pricing been released or is it going to be available with E5? But I think you said that they have not talked about licensing yet, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, they have. The only thing that they've said is that Project Cortex is going to be a premium product, which makes sense because think about all of the hardware you need to process these documents and, crunch the AI. But they haven't said if it's going to be a part of, E5 or something separate. We don't know.
Okay, 2 more questions. Does it have the capability to read a folder in Outlook Exchange and then have that strip attachments from emails and put those into SharePoint while processing them through the forms templates that have been created to automate it where a user doesn't have to manually upload it?
No, they haven't announced anything around email extraction.
Okay. Second one is, do you know how the metadata extraction works if there are different templates involved? For example, in the PO example, what if we get POs that all look different, where the vendor information might be at the top in one, at the bottom in the other, or if it's called a shipping address in one or delivery location in another?
Yeah, so that's where you'd want to use the second method, the machine teaching model, rather than the forms processing, because the machine teaching model is designed for this exact scenario, where it's a common type of purchase order, but maybe the information has different names and exists in different places. Let me actually see if I can jump back there to show you more clearly. I'm just finding the right page. This one. All right, start from current slide. So this is an example where, you know, it's trying to identify the piece of information, and it doesn't have to live in the same place. But what you would do is for the different names of things, you would put the different names in this phrase list that helps the model identify the data. So, you know, if one person, let me see what you used in your example. If one person calls it vendor and the other person calls it, you know, shipping address or delivering location, you could put those as different phrases in this phrase list. But because it's a bit more ambiguous, that's why a human has to review it and train the model, if that makes sense.
Okay, one more. Does it do the OCR of PDF files, or do they need to be OCR before being uploaded?
I don't know. They haven't announced that. It's going to work the same as any PDF file that's uploaded to SharePoint. You know, PDF files, unless there's, I mean, if it's an actual PDF file, you can read the full text in search. It's only if it's uploaded as an image file instead of a PDF that you might not be able to read that text. So it won't be any different than how PDFs work in SharePoint already.
Right. Any other questions?
Really great questions. I appreciate it.
Well, Amber's been asking most of the questions, and I know that her company deals a lot with lots of documents. So.
Well, if any other questions come up, you know, please attend the Project Cortex sessions at Ignite, or they'll be available on demand afterward per usual. I'm also always happy to answer questions through Twitter, LinkedIn, or you can just email me. Yeah, always happy to help.
Yeah, and I believe I have your contact information posted on our user group announcement for this meeting. So
yep.
All her public contact information is available there on our user group site under the meeting invitation or announcement. Speaking of Ignite, I want to direct everybody to, well, I don't have the actual URL, but I think if you just, is it just aka.ms/ignite maybe?
Honestly, I just searched for
Microsoft Ignite. Just search for Microsoft Ignite.
Yep.
Because of this whole pandemic thing, it's free this year. It's all virtual. Right. And so register for that, and then you can start putting together your tracks for learning. And there's always great information and all the latest announcements. When it comes to SharePoint, Office, or Microsoft 365 announcements, they announce their major announcements twice a year. Once at Ignite and then once at the SharePoint conference. Or are they going to change the name now to Microsoft?
Oh yeah, it's like the Microsoft 365 conference now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you get two major announcements. So this late September is Ignite, and I guess it's the last, like the 21st to 23rd or something like that, right?
Yeah, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
Yeah. So, yeah, I still have my hotel reserved in New Orleans. I don't know what to do with it. I'm trying to rent it out. So.
Oh no, they're not going to let you cancel it?
No, I mean, I could, but I lose some money. So I'm trying to rent it to somebody that wants a vacation. So, but
yeah, and they're going to have lots of great activities at Ignite. So not just these informational presentations, but they're also organizing discussion roundtables. So if you actually want to ask questions of a certain topic, and other types of Ask the Expert sessions.
Yep. Okay, I don't see any new questions. I want to, so a recording of this presentation for all your coworkers that haven't been able to, let me share there. Hopefully, oops. I'm trying to understand this whole Teams thing here. There we go. So if you guys, the attendees, everybody wants to see a recording of this or direct coworkers to a recording of this, it's going to be on our YouTube channel. That's the easiest way for us to do it. And then I'll put a link to Erica's slide deck also in the description of the YouTube link, but I already posted it in our announcements also. So that'll be there hopefully later this afternoon once everything gets processed through Stream and gets deposited into my Teams site. Otherwise, that's it for today's meeting. Erica, thank you very much for presenting, and all the attendees, thank you for attending. We'll see you on October 1st.
Thank you.
All right, bye.